So you want to know about Easter eggs, right? Well, if you're a hunter, then maybe you should look for a description because who's to say you're not hunting one right now? But I'll put a pin in that one later. For now, let's get back to the video. How's it going, everybody? My name is Absoulem, and today's video is a comprehensive update to my previous Unsolved Easter eggs video that I posted well over a year ago. So since then, so much has changed. Stuff has been solved, debunked, and even discovered. So I thought it was about time that I put together everything across all of Call of Duty Zombies once again, so that by the end of this video, you are totally up to date on everything Easter egg related in COD Zombies. Now, I'm not going to be just simply talking about the Easter eggs that we already know about. I'm also going to be debuting a few newer leads that I've been working on with my team, so stay tuned for that because I am putting all of my cards on the table. I'm purging every single piece of information I have on Easter eggs in this video in hopes that our community can come together and solve these last few Easter eggs. Also, if something is not in this video, then it is either debunked or undiscovered. I have tested every lead I've received at this point through DMs and emails and Discord messages and possibly even the dark web. I don't know. The point is, I've explored every rabbit hole in this known universe, and I have extensively tested with my team to find the truth. So everything in this video is in fact worth hunting. So if it's not in this video, it's either debunked or undiscovered. Now, with that being said, if you have a lead that you want to share, then by all means hit me up via Twitter or Discord. And if you want to get into this hunt yourself, Discord is hands down the best way to go, and that's all linked in the description. So now, without further ado, let's get started with our first Easter egg. Okay, let's kick things off by talking about a super exciting unsolved cipher for the 1000th time. But since it's still unsolved, it's going in this video, and of course I'm talking about the giant cipher that is found in the window barrier next to the bridge. And despite the trolling claims that this cipher had been solved by our overlord ChatGPT, this is still very much unsolved. And with AI letting us down, we need some sort of genius out there to finally crack the code on this. Even with some of the goated BO3 cipher solvers taking stab after stab at this, we are still coming up empty-handed. So I gotta say, this one is feeling pretty grim. At this point, we've reached the conclusion that this cipher most likely has a typo in it, causing it to be extremely difficult, if at all possible, to solve, or that it's possibly a different kind of cipher and we're just, I don't know, stupid. So I prefer the former, but it's most likely the latter. But if you're looking for something to do while you camp the catwalk, then by all means take a crack at this and best of luck to you. I'll also add that we think that this might be a base 64 cipher. I mean, all signs point to north that that's what this is. However, we haven't really made much progress, so it could very likely be something totally different. But that's going to wrap up this unsolved cipher, and now I know we need more ciphers, so let's take a trip over to Revelations. Now, Revelations has a total of 10 remaining unsolved ciphers that are found on pieces of scrap paper around the map. And if you want a higher quality photo of these ciphers, then I have a link in the description that has really high-res photos of each of these. But, there's not much to say about these ciphers. This is a deep dive into Jason Blundell's psyche, so your guess is as good as mine. But hey, we started with 14, and now we've solved 4 over 9 years, so my guess is by 2050, we'll finally have deciphered the clues Monty was giving us to know what he was up to and if we could have stopped Vanguard zombies. But that's about all there is to say about Revelation ciphers. These are very difficult and they've stumped the community for years. But now, lucky us, we can move on to another cipher. Alright, so that's all the annoying ciphers, and now we can move on to one that is way more interesting. And I would be very surprised if you guys even heard of this one, as I personally have barely even seen it mentioned. So I'm going to go ahead and dub this the Deer Head Cipher, and it can be found on the map the Reisendrache. Alright, so there's a lot to unpack for this Easter egg, and I'm going to do my best to just lay out everything I know at this point. And I think at the end of this, you'll see that this is either a cipher or it was a step-based Easter egg that got cut at some point during development. So let's head over to the power room and get started. Now you're going to notice in this glass case right here besides the perk machine that there are 3 swords with Roman numerals on these golden buckles that say 1, 2, and 3. Now notice the 2 swords have the same handle and then the very top one is different. Remember that 2-to-1 ratio, it's going to be coming up quite a bit. So if you turn around and look directly across from you, there is a crossbow in the other glass case with yet another Roman numeral on a golden buckle. The number 1 is on this one, and so far we have a crossbow and the 3 swords. Now if you direct your attention above the perk machine, you're going to see that same crossbow and 2 swords up on the wall right there with 3 blank plaques. And the numbers that it would represent would be 111. However, if you were to combine the 2 and 3 in the sword case, that would be 5, so maybe it's 115. I don't really know, but so far on that plaque number right there, it is 111. But I'm not too sure what to make of this at the moment, so now let's make it way more complicated and head over to Samantha's room. Now, when we get here in the library, we're going to notice above the bookshelves that we have yet another 3 golden buckles with the numbers 1, 2, and 3 on them. Now, this is why I call it a deer head cipher, because guess what? Those are some deer heads. And here we're going to see the 2-to-1 ratio once again, because we have the 1 deer head that is a skull right there on the number 1, and then we have the other 2 identical deer heads. So that's the 1-to-2 ratio once again, like the swords. Now, this is where things are going to go wildly off the rails. So along with the deer heads, we've also got this stuffed raven pointing to the left right here next to him. So keep that 2-to-1 ratio in mind, because guess what? That one's got another raven right here pointing to the left. That's the 2 ravens. I'll get to the other one in just a moment, but I'm just going to start showing you all the locations of the deer heads that are found around the map as well. So something worth mentioning is that the raven poster or picture portrait is right here between the first 2 ravens. It's a little bit more detailed, kind of like the wolf bow paintings. So I wasn't really sure if it was relevant, but I figured, hey, why not put it in the mix and make it even more complicated? So now I'm going to start showing you the deer heads. The next one can be found inside of the church area. It's right up here above the fireplace. So we have the normal deer and then the skull deer, and then don't look at those. Those are just antlers. So let's move on to the next locations. So if you make your way to the trophy room, we're going to notice some more deer heads. And then what's that? A raven pointing to the right. Now the other ones were pointing to the left. So there's our 2-to-1 ratio. We have 3 ravens, 2 to the left, 1 to the right. So I'm not really sure what it means, but there's also more deer heads here that match. Have no clue what I'm doing at this point. But I figured I would also put in the raven that we've all shot and not felt guilty about. And that might be connected. It might not. We don't know anymore. This is just such a mess of clues. I have no idea what to make of this, but it's a lot of just random pieces, and I'm just kind of showing you everything. So in case you're feeling a little bit confused, I'm going to make it so much worse, because if you make your way to the clock tower, you're going to notice some Roman numerals on it. And I'm not talking about the ones on the outside. I'm talking about the super hidden ones on the inner circle. So there's these black Roman numerals that are, you guessed it, 1, 2, 3, and 4 that match the exact same font as our buckles. No clue why those are there. Don't know if normal clocks have other sets of numbers on them, but I'm guessing not. But hey, there's some more Roman numerals for you. And if that's not enough Roman numerals, then let's take a trip to the rocket pad. All right, so the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 are also found on the rocket's fins. And to me, this feels like it would be something you'd find on a normal rocket, but as I'm not a rocket scientist, I felt like including it because it matches the 1, 2, 3, and 4 that we find on the clock face. But now that I've thoroughly gone over everything that keeps me up at night, let's wrap this up by going over my best working theory of this absolute chaotic mess. So assuming it's not a cut Easter egg and it's actually a cipher, then what do we make of the crossbow and 3 swords and the deer heads in the library and then all the other deer heads and the different facing ravens and the clock tower numbers and the rocket pad numbers? Like, what do we make of all this? Well, to me personally, I think that the crossbow and swords are going to be used in a combination to give us some sort of key for the cipher, and the numbers on the buckles are going to be what we dictate the key with. I also think that the clock tower is going to be our home base, and we're going to use the times on the clocks to dictate what our string of actual plain text might be. And the numbers around the map, as well as the deer heads and stuff, might signify what order in which we get our times. So that's kind of where I'm going with this, but it feels a little bit jumbled up still to me. But because these swords and everything are so clearly something, whether they were in the game and cut or they're actually still a thing and they're a cipher, I don't know, but it's so obvious that I had to include this in this video. But that's everything I know about the Deerhead cipher so far, so now it is time to move on to what we've all been waiting for. That's right, this is the Easter egg that needs no introduction. Hunting this one is like me with COD Zombies. I just keep coming back despite there being no hope for the future. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the impossible Easter egg. So unless you've been living under a rock, I'm assuming you have some sort of base understanding of this Easter egg already, but I'm here today to give you the most up-to-date information on this unsolved mystery. So, back in 2017, our beloved Jason Blundell gave us the biggest cliffhanger ever when he decided to debut an impossible Easter egg impromptu style during an interview with a reporter. So let's take a look at that footage right now.
Using an oscilloscope to actually be able to decode it and find out, and the community keeps on finding them and keeps on decoding them. So going into Black Ops 3, I'm fed up now, and I'm going to really put one in that you guys can't break, and they'll be hidden in different arenas, and you won't get this one.
Are you sitting comfortably? Then we shall begin.
So that was him debuting it, and after that we didn't really have too much to go on until a later interview with Mr. Dalek JD, that we got a further explanation from Jason where he said he would probably be talking about this in another 8 years' time. And so the community took that to mean that we would be getting a hint from Blundell himself in 8 years, which would be the year 2025. So that would be next year at the time of this video. So where this gets a little bit complicated is obviously Jason no longer works at Treyarch, and so there is a slight chance that his NDA won't allow him to speak about the game as he's no longer the director. But personally, I don't really see this being an issue, and I wholeheartedly believe either way that the community will go absolutely ballistic if we don't get this hint. So I personally fully expect that Jason's going to pop his head up out of the sand one day and just blink Morse code at us and then disappear into the shadows of evil. All right, so let's get into what the Easter egg is and go over all the current updates. So BO3 has been data mined more than D Machina's launch, and as a result, it appears that there are no more step-based Easter eggs, meaning that the impossible Easter egg can only really be a cipher or some sort of texturing game that leads us to an outside source, kind of like the QR code Easter egg on Voyage of Despair. So where's this thing most likely at? What do we know about it, and what are the current leads and progress? Well, I'm glad you asked. Okay, so thanks to a recent interview between Glitchy Queen and Corey, who's the guy that initially interviewed Jason and got him to talk about the impossible Easter egg in the first place, we now know that this Easter egg could happen on one of 3 maps, or possibly all 3. So that would be the Giant, Shadows of Evil, and Horizondrak. So up until this point, we've always assumed that this took place on Shadows of Evil because Corey used footage of Shadows during the interview when Jason talked about the impossible Easter egg. But in reality, he had actually just reached out to Mr. Waffles for essential B-roll footage of zombies, and he chose to send him footage of Shadows of Evil. So at this point, we now found out that it could take place on any of the maps. Now, I don't know if Mr. Waffles got neuralized or something and forgot that he gave that footage, but if he had come forward, that would have saved us quite a bit of time because we were putting all of our Gateworm eggs into the Shadows of Evil basket. So knowing that this could be on all the maps, why do I say it's only on the first 3? Well, that's because in the follow-up interview with Dalek and the one and only Blundell confirms that the player base had actually gotten pretty close to solving the Easter egg already. So that interview released prior to the release of Zetsubo no Shima. So that's why we know it could only be on the Giant, Shadows of Evil, and the Horizondrak. All right, now that we're dialed in on what maps it could be on, where would be the best place to start? Well, this is just a hunch, so go with me on this one, but since the community has religiously searched Shadows of Evil for 7 years to no avail, it's probably best if we turn our efforts towards the Giant and the Horizondrak and look for something that's very, very well hidden on one of those maps. Gosh, it's a real shame that there's not a super complicated cipher Easter egg on Horizondrak that, dare I say, feels impossible using deer heads and swords and clock towers and numbers and all that. Man, if only there was something like that. But I think it's safe to say where I'll be focusing my efforts and trying to make headway in these newfound updates surrounding the impossible Easter egg. Another big part of this, outside of just what maps to look on, is what Jason's actually given us as a hint so far. So he has said that this could take place in all arenas. Now, that's a classic Blundell quote because that could be deciphered in many different ways. That could mean it's on all the 3 maps, or it's on every location of one specific map, or he could be using the word arena as like a stage or a platform or something like that, and it's taking place on all the arenas. So that's food for thought when you're scouring these maps and looking for stuff, is to keep in mind that he mentioned it could be in all arenas. So even though I'm mostly focusing on the Giant and Horizondrak at this point, we of course can't rule out Shadows of Evil, so if you are interested in hunting that map, then I made a video going over my community's latest theories and ideas surrounding that map, so I've linked that in the description below, and feel free to check that out. Alright, that's going to wrap up everything for the impossible Easter egg, and now it's time to move on to our last topic on Black Ops 3, which is a brand new lead that I've been working on with my teammate Looper. So this takes place on Dreisendrach, and yes, because it's on Black Ops 3, it is a cipher. Guys, I promise you this is the last cipher for now. But this is something that is really, really obscure that we found while we were hunting the Deerhead cipher, aka what I'm going to call the Impossible Easter egg if I end up solving this before the Impossible Easter egg because I can't be stopped. But this is what is going to be known as the window cipher. So if you look at the castle wall, you're going to notice that all of the windows are actually unique. The shutters have different lines going different directions. There are various levels of lit up. Some are open, some are closed, some are half open, some are missing shutters. Every single window on this castle is different from one another, which is very odd, and that's actually what caught our interest in the first place. So in game design, they don't typically make individual assets when they're dealing with large quantities, and this would mean that the developers made like upwards of 100 different windows. So they either had a wild weekend and just went balls to the wall and made a ton of windows, or these windows actually had some sort of significant relevance to an Easter egg or something like that. So Looper and I started looking into these windows to try to make sense of this, and it led us down kind of an interesting path because these windows started to line up with different kinds of ciphers, but we couldn't really make heads or tails of what was going on here. That is until we decided to use semaphore ciphers, which is something we've seen in Zombies a couple times so far, but this would use the angle in the shutters and how they are opened or closed to translate some sort of base text. But something unique started happening, and we started noticing that none of the values was going over the letter G. And if you're a musician or know music, you know that a scale is A through G. So we started thinking maybe there's more to this, and it's actually going to spell out some sort of song like we've seen on other maps on Black Ops 3. So we're still translating this, and I'm very excited to see where this goes, but we've been working on this in our free time, and there's a lot of windows. So this could be something where they're using the lines, the angles, and the lights to depict a multi-layered cipher like we've seen in other versions of ciphers in Zombies. But that is everything on this lead, and it's also going to wrap up Black Ops 3, so let's move on to our next title. Alright, so we're moving into Infinite Warfare Zombies, and we're going to kick things off by dipping our toes into the World Wide Web of X, formerly known as Twitter. So if you guys remember over a year ago when the Dark Ages happened, where we thought that Twitter was going to go away forever. So during the full-blown pandemonium came one really amazing tweet. And this special little tweet came from a developer on IWZ known as AJ. He simply tweeted out something along the lines of, hey guys, this might be the end of the road, it might be goodbye, it's been real, it's been fun, and oh yeah, I created 2 Easter eggs and they never got solved. All right, see ya. So naturally I gravitated to my DM section on Twitter and I reached out to AJ to see what the hell he was even talking about. So after taking a trip to the Twitter archives, I was unable to find his tweet, which is unfortunate as I'm pretty sure he's deleted it at this point, especially since Twitter didn't actually go away. However, I was able to refresh myself by reading through our DMs, and so I will summarize that for you guys right now. I'm not going to read it verbatim because it's his private messages and I didn't get permission, so it just kind of feels scummy. So I'm just going to summarize it for us, and here we go. So essentially I was like, hey buddy, noticed you put a pretty cool tweet up about some Easter eggs, what's that about? And he was like, NDA, NDA, NDA. And I was like, oh no, I get it. I don't actually want steps. I was just hoping to get some sort of hint, kind of like Treyarch did for Don't Freeze. And I was just hoping that you could provide something like that. And so he was actually gracious enough to give me a few nudges in the right direction. However, it was still super vague. So right now I'm going to share what he essentially told me. He said, first off, one is on Raven the Redwoods, the other is on Beast from Beyond. So now we have one on each. That is the 2 remaining Easter eggs on this game that are 100% confirmed. He also mentioned that these are not going to be story relevant Easter eggs. They have no weight on the actual gameplay or story, and that these would be more whimsical, almost inside joke type Easter eggs that wasn't even designed for the player base. And in fact, it was mainly made for the developers themselves. So that leads me to believe that it's going to be something kind of like the DE family photo Easter egg, or something where you have to like stare at a developer photo and maybe the faces change into some funny faces. Something very simple. He said it would only be a step, maybe 2. It's very simple. And that's all the relevant information he gave me surrounding these Easter eggs, and I'm very appreciative to AJ for taking the time to respond and also providing some sort of hints. It's always exciting news when we get a developer to confirm the Easter eggs himself, so we're not just out here wasting time. And so now we actually have 2 Easter egg hunts to go out there and hunt for something. So there are definitely Easter eggs on IWZ, and I can't wait to see what they are. I hope that we solve these as a community, and I'm a huge fan of the whimsical ones. But that's everything I know at the moment, and now let's move on to our next Easter egg. So this one was in my last video, and since it hasn't been debunked fully, I wanted to include it into this video, but this is the round 6000 Zombies space helmet Easter egg on Zombies in Spaceland. So we believe at this point that this is triggered by an Easter egg and or reaching round 6000, which is kind of impossible, so essentially the Easter egg is the only way to properly trigger this. So the leading theory is that the spaceman here holding 2 blue balloons is going to be involved somehow, and there are balloons all over the map that you can shoot and interact with, so this is my best theory at the moment as to how to solve this Easter egg. The only reason we know about this in the first place is leaks and a leaked photo of the zombies wearing the space helmets, and at first I was skeptical, but then I thought there is a zombie space helmet asset in Beast from Beyond, so I could see where this is very likely and worth hunting, so hopefully somebody can figure this out. But that is going to wrap up IWZ, and now let's move into my favorite zombies, World War II. Okay, it's time to move on to our next and most promising game for unsolved Easter eggs, which is World War II Zombies. So over the last few years, I have been trying to truly flush out this game and uncover its secrets, as it has the most unsolved Easter eggs in all of Zombies. Now, because this game is harder, the Easter eggs are well hidden and tend to be much harder to solve, not to mention the fact that it didn't have a Treyarch logo on it, people ended up absolutely hating this game. So my goal is to simplify and condense 7 years worth of extensive hunting into just a few minutes. That way we have a clear direction on what to actually hunt, because people are wasting time hunting debunked leads due to the fact that there's a ton of misinformation out there which has scattered the player base. Also, with the sheer abundance of information needed to hunt this properly, I'll be making a follow-up video for World War II with the sole purpose to do a deep dive on what I'm going over today. However, if TikTok has robbed your ability to be patient, you're welcome to join my Discord link below to get caught up as well. So now let's get started on how I'll be breaking this game down. Alright, the first thing to understand about this game is that there's 2 scenarios for all of the remaining unsolved leads. Scenario 1 is where we're assuming there's roughly 4 to 5 side Easter eggs left on World War II Zombies to wrap up its unsolved mysteries. We're basing this off the amount of leads and theories we have at this time, which has led us to believe that there's a handful of side Easter eggs left on this game. And now to the much more exciting Scenario 2. Scenario 2 is where there's maybe 1 or 2 side Easter eggs and then a possible super Easter egg, or director's cut if you will, which is not a term I like to use lightly. Now at this time we have no idea which scenario will end up being true, since all of our leads are currently jumbled up. Think of this like a pile of jigsaw pieces with no picture on them. We know that these pieces go together, but without the main picture to know what we're building, we have no idea which piece goes where. So to make all this make sense, I'm going to be dividing all these leads into 2 categories. Category 1 is everything I think goes to a super Easter egg, and category 2 is all the stuff I think goes to side Easter eggs. And since you guys have done a great job sitting through that very lengthy and boring setup to this game, I'm going to kick things off by going over the possible super Easter egg leads. And now that we're on the subject, I think it's important to note that this game not only didn't have a super Easter egg, but it followed one of the most iconic super Easter eggs of all time with the IWZ director's cut and Mephistopheles fight. So I just find it kind of odd that they followed such an incredibly high bar with absolutely nothing. Now don't worry, that's not the only reason I think there's a super in World War II, but I just find it kind of odd. Now with that being said, the best incentives besides our leads are what the developers actually said when asked about a director's cut. So check out what they said right here.
Now, I know there were some questions about, in the future, would there be a director's cut or anything like that? And not to jump into
No, please, sir.
Of course, I reviewed this beforehand. If we do that, we've already got the elements of those notebooks and everything that were generated and written up already, and so that looks like to be going in.
Ooh. That is very exciting news if it works out, of course. No promises.
Now I know you've
So in this clip we hear Cameron Dayton talk about the potential for a director's cut, or a super Easter egg if you will. And in context, he explains that they had a very small team for the first part of this game, and so they were limited with their time, but they had worked really hard on creating assets for the notebook, but then later ended up cutting it as the game progressed. So when he says that the director's cut could be coming soon, he specifically mentions that those cut assets for the notebook would be used for a potential super Easter egg. So I could see a world where the notebook is a handy tool while hunting the super Easter egg. Now besides the notebook, there is one other tool I believe they gave us, which is the zombie skin that we got for beating all of the Easter eggs. I think a lot of people thought that this was the super Easter egg, but upon looking into this further, I think that that's actually the first step to the super Easter egg. So we know that supers usually require doing something on all the maps to get started, so my theory is that we unlock the zombie skin and then go back to the final Reich and complete an extra couple steps to finish whatever this might be. This would operate very similar to the Willard Wyler steps on IW. Keep in mind, that was the predecessor to this game. And that's going to complete the tools I think that are needed to hunt this super Easter egg, which is the notebook and the zombie skin. So now I'm going to go into the leads to start connecting the dots and show you what I think ties into this. Now the first random piece of this potential puzzle are the eagle crest. The first one can be found in spawn on the roof right up there on the ledge. And this is a unique asset that stands out amongst the map. Now there's only 3 of these, the one in spawn and then the others are on top of the clock tower next to the famous 4 Tesla coils. These are famous because the community has long since thought that these need to be lit up somehow. So think of these eagles as a marker or placeholder for a step, and I'm going to explain that a little bit more in this category and then tie it in with these side Easter eggs when we get to that section. So for now, let's move on to our next possible lead. Our next odd item is the white panel at the bottom of the toy shop stairs. What makes this kind of weird is that the first time you look at it in game, you will see a faint crosshair of what's believed to be the Car 98 slowly fade away after a few seconds. Now, I'm not entirely sure what this would mean for a super Easter egg or even a side Easter egg, but perhaps it's a nod to the classic jump scare type Easter eggs where we had to use a sniper to look outside the map. So maybe this was their way of telling us to use the Car 98 to look around the map, perhaps the top of the clock tower. I don't really know. It's a weird thing and it had to go somewhere. Before we move on though, I wanted to mention the white panels on the Shadowed Throne that are in the museum and across from Pack-a-Punch, because I've seen people throwing out the theory that these might be connected to the one on the Final Reich, but upon looking into this further, 1, the panels are not the same asset as the one on the Final Reich, so that's already kind of suspicious to me, and 2, I don't expect this Easter egg to span across multiple maps in this game, and also if that was the case, where are the other panels on the other maps? So I don't really think the Final Reich and Shadowed Throne panels are connected in any way. Everybody knows that it's totally normal to put shingles on your roof, but the family of this house is a special family because they decided they needed 4 copper shingles on their roof to stand out and one-up the neighbors, I guess. Why are there 4 random copper shingles on a roof for what's seemingly no reason at all? Honestly, your guess is as good as mine, but for now, let's put another pin in this one like we did for the Eagle Crest for when I return later and connect all of the dots. There is one more item I want to put with the Eagle Crest and shingles to return to later, and that is the chandelier around the map. There's 3 of these around the map and they are all the same asset. What stands out to me is that these have an alarming amount of textures and details for an item that appears to not be that important, but more importantly, these are all in 3 very prominent areas of the map. There's the one in the toy shop, which is the home base in the storyline for this map, if you're not aware. The other one is underneath the clock tower, which has the 4 Tesla coils. And then there's the last one that's underneath the lightning rod tower, which again is an electrical area of the map. I don't put a lot of stock in this being something, but it is kind of odd that they have a ton of textures, seeing that most items that have that much textures and details are interactable or Easter egg items. They don't spend a lot of time making a highly detailed item outside the map. Also, not to mention the chandelier and the salt mines is how you actually activate the final step of the hardcore Easter egg. So I could see where these 3 chandeliers might be a variant to the hardcore Easter egg to complete a so-called super Easter egg. So that, plus the fact that they're underneath these prominent areas, made me go, perhaps they're indicators for a step, like maybe if we do a step correctly, one of them lights up and that's our cue to know that we've done it, something like that. So I think this might make a little bit more sense once I connect all these dots, but now it's time to stop huffing copium and move into a certified lead. Our next lead was brought to us by Cheats. Cheats was nice enough to sponsor today's video, and they wanted me to plug their new product, data mining, the worldwide provider for modern day Easter egg hunting. Thanks to data mining, we don't have to have fun anymore. Alright, that's enough of that, but this lead actually was found through PC mods, specifically weapon unlock tools, and it unveiled a pretty wild secret to this game. And the secret was that there was an upgraded version of the Tesla gun called the ACAC. This gun is a papped version of the base Tesla gun, not to be confused with the Raven upgrades. However, we also know that there's another upgrade in the game that's the Bloodthirst Tesla upgrade in the files. Well, to be specific, it's more of a power increase and not a new version of it, because it's still called the Bloodthirst after it's upgraded. Here is a screenshot of it, as I was unable to load this one into the game due to crashing, but as you can see, it shoots a pellet spread of red energy and is a little bit more powerful when it comes to killing zombies. So with the Tesla upgrade and the Bloodthirst upgrade in the files, it seems highly unlikely that these were created and then just never used. The game doesn't make a point to have assets left in the game if they were going to be cut. This isn't modern day zombies where a pause menu aloofs the devs. So will we be needing these upgrades for a super Easter egg quest? To me, one of the biggest details that supports this is the red lights on the Tesla crafting station. Every Tesla's light is active except for the normal Tesla gun. So maybe that's our cue to upgrade the Tesla gun to the ACAC version and get the gun's light to turn on, signifying we've completed the upgrade path. Also, here's a clip of the ACAC buying ammo on Pack-a-Punch so that you can see it's in fact the Pack-a-Punch version of it. And for those that are still not on board, then here is the game file clearly stating that it is a real thing. So the true question is what they are for and are they still active in the game officially? I'm going to get more into this in a moment, but let's go over one more lead before I tie all this together. Cameron Dayton said in an interview that came out around the time of Shadowed Throne that he was surprised that no one had tried more combinations on the Voice of God. Now, first off, I apologize that I do not have the exact clip to show this moment. I searched countless interviews, and after 8 hours of searching, I'm just going to have to invoke the Trust Me Bro source and continue on. But if someone does know this exact moment, then please reach out to me and I will pin it in the description so that we have that for anyone that's watching in the future. But for him to say that he's surprised no one tried more stuff, to me that is a glaring hint that there is more to this game and an Easter egg right in front of our faces. So this is practically confirmed by the developers themselves that there's more to hunt. So these numbers could end up being a side insignificant Easter egg like maybe a free max ammo or something along those lines, or it could actually tie into our super Easter egg. So now allow me to connect the dots. This is the moment we've all been waiting for me to lay out all these leads and theories and odd items I've been showing you and how this could possibly be a super Easter egg. But you better brace yourselves because we're about to step into my insane mind that's been fried from hunting these Easter eggs for way too long. So with 600 combinations on the Voice of God, what if one of these numbers potentially unlocks or turns on the clock tower or something around the map which allows us to start working on the upgrade quest for the ACAC Tesla? So we know from the tortured path that there is a piece that can be inserted into the Pack-a-Punch machine to further upgrade weapons. And it just so happens that the Pack-a-Punch machine on this map also has that same insert spot. So what if by putting in the numbers on the Voice of God that unlocks the piece or allows you to get access to the piece to upgrade the Pack-a-Punch machine to then further progress this quest? By papping the Tesla, we might use our notebook features to then upgrade the Bloodthirst Tesla to use on the Clock Tower Tesla coils or some other area of the map, to then interact with our Eagle Crest from earlier. So bear with me on this one. After the Clock Tower Tesla coils are lit up, the Eagle Crest might raise up or they might interact somehow. Light could bounce off or electricity from the coils themselves. The Zeppelin could interact with it. I don't really know. I just know that once those Tesla coils are lit, something probably big is going to happen. So then my mind goes to the 4 shingles on the roof. Those are a reflective surface, so maybe the light or electricity will have to bounce off of it from the Zeppelin or these Eagle Crest Tesla coils. Or it could just be a heap of nothing, but I think we can go a little bit deeper because as crazy as this theory is, there are signs of life for it to be true. So with all 3 Eagle Crest activated, if you will, I could see where by activating them, we light up our 3 chandeliers around the map. And essentially, I think this all boils down to an electrical-based Easter egg. So then we would use our upgraded Bloodthirst Tesla gun to shoot the Tesla coils on the clock tower, possibly prompting us to then activate a lightning rod or some sort of power source once again, which would be marked complete by all 3 chandeliers. And if you're curious what would light up the toy shop chandelier, well then I could see that the fire trap would actually be used, or the well trap. Because did you know that there's 2 hardcore Easter egg marking plates in the fire trap itself? Yet the trap's never used in the hardcore Easter egg except for when Klaus walks into it. So that explains one plate, but what's the second one doing there? So maybe the second plate in the fire trap actually marks one of the additional steps we have to do, which just happens to be next to the chandelier in the toy shop. Now, just to be clear, I don't think that we're doing a standalone super Easter egg in this case. I think it would be modifying the hardcore Easter egg, just like the hardcore modifies the casual Easter egg. So I think we're going 3 layers deep if the super Easter egg actually exists. I mean, how come all the traps are used in the hardcore Easter egg steps except for the well trap? It just doesn't add up. What I'm trying to get at with all of this is that all or some of these odd items could link together to power something up, and I believe if it is real, then it would be to power up the clock tower. It's the most prominent feature on the map, even visible from Grossenhaus, and yet not one step or side Easter egg at all uses the clock tower. Yet we have 4 Tesla coils and Eagle Crest adorning the top of it, and I just feel like there is a very good chance that more secrets are to be uncovered with the clock tower. Now maybe by trying to fix the clock tower, we will rewind or fix time, if you will, and actually unlock Klaus, which would be the whole point of the super Easter egg. And we know that Klaus has a playable model in the game because we see it at the end of the hardcore Easter egg. So that tells me that they've created his model in game, and it would be very easy to unlock it as a reward for the super. And it's also very reminiscent of the Willard quest in the predecessor IWZ. So I guess to boil it all down, we complete all the maps on the game, and then we go back to the final Reich and we modify the hardcore Easter egg using some of these leads that we have for a possible super, and then at the end we would unlock Klaus as our final reward. Now, I'm well aware that this theory is the definition of grasping at straws. However, we do know that the Tesla upgrades, we have a lot of items that stand out in the map, and we also know that the developers had a lot of extra time on their hands and even nodded to the fact that there could be a director's cut. And all of those combined to me are enough to at least try to solve any unsolved mysteries, especially if it's a super Easter egg. I'm simply trying to paint a picture for how this could unfold to get our minds working and going in the right direction in case there is a puzzle that needs to be solved that could unlock a lot more to this game. And now with the super Easter egg category wrapped up, let's move into the more plausible side Easter eggs. Okay, so our first side Easter egg is going to kick things off because this is the glass boot Easter egg. This is found in the pub and it is 100% a side Easter egg. If it's not, then I would literally delete my channel because I have no business hunting Easter eggs if this is not an Easter egg. That's how sure I am. So when you break the boot by meleeing or shooting, it'll disintegrate into these little glass shards that have an animation, and then it disappears forever. Now, a while back, I had a player message me about an Easter egg that he had solved involving a blue bear, which I'll get to in just a moment, and this glass boot was supposedly connected to that quest line where he unlocks a bunch of treasure zombies. Due to the fact that he's refusing to provide proof or information, I can't really confirm if this Easter egg even exists or if this is connected. But like I said earlier, I am purging everything I know, and that is one piece of information that I have in my back pocket. The only thing I know for sure is that the glass boot is absolutely going to be something, but whether it ties to what he's saying or not, I don't know. But to give a little bit of weight to what he's claiming, there was a thing at the beginning of this game where you could actually glitch into the upper area of the pub and trigger a shitload of treasure zombies. So with the glass boot being right below where that trigger point is, it's definitely possible that the boot is tied to the treasure zombie quest he's claiming. But I can't claim anything for sure at this point, but now I want to highlight that blue bear that he was talking about. So the bear I've been referencing is actually in the post office window barrier, sitting in a wheelchair facing a fireplace with 3 different bottles on the mantle. So the post office being right beside Klaus's workshop is actually very relevant to the lore of this storyline. And so when we go to Klaus's workshop, we actually find that same bear on the table upstairs. Upon looking at the bear, we notice that it's missing its right arm and its left leg. So that got us thinking that what else could tie into this? Well, there is a body in the morgue that is also on display and missing its left leg. So maybe these are connected, or maybe Sledgehammer just has a weird obsession with taking away limbs. So when this guy claimed to have solved this bear Easter egg linking to treasure zombies, he gave some hints. That's what I'm basing a lot of this footage off of. But the main thing he talked about was the bottles. And so the bottles the bear's looking at can be found around the map and be broken through meleeing or shooting. So we got one at the toy shop stairs, one on this barrel here in the square. We have a bunch in the pub area, and then there's 3 more in the bunker area. So the only one that doesn't break is the one in the town square. So I don't know if that's relevant or not, or if these bottles are relevant, because again, we don't know what's true and what's not true for this. It's also just worth throwing into the mix that Klaus's workshop's logo is actually a teddy bear, and that's very relevant to the storyline. So having a bear quest is very plausible. The last thing I'll mention about this bear is that the wheelchair it sits in is actually found in the laboratories, and there's only one of these chairs in the map, so whether these tie together or not, I'm not sure. This could be some sort of fetch quest where we get the bottles in the wheelchair and vice versa, and essentially link something in the pub with the glass boot possibly. So now it's time for all of us to look into this and unveil its mysteries if it actually exists. So to wrap up this bear thing, I'm going to bring us over to the blue chimney that has a chrysanthemum logo on it, and that is going to lead us into our next Easter egg. The chrysanthemum logo, or the flower, is actually a really interesting piece of World War II lore from Japan, and I'll get to that in just a moment. But this flower can be found a lot around the map, and initially I thought it was just a nod to some lore, but now I have reason to believe that there could be a side quest linking to this. So to start, I'm going to tell you what the chrysanthemum logo meant during World War II to Japanese culture. Senjishu, hana wa tenno no ishino o are wa shiteta. Oh wait, sorry if you don't speak Japanese. Hang on, let me start from the beginning. So during the war, the flower represented the seal of the emperor, and so they would inscribe the chrysanthemum flower on a lot of the rifles. However, if the soldier was captured, they would deface the weapon by scratching off the seal. So that would represent a sign of disgrace. So now if we look at the Type 38 in World War II Zombies, when you pack-a-punch it, its name is called the defaced chrysanthemum. So that's pretty interesting to me to know that little piece of lore, but then I started looking into this a little bit further and I realized that these figurines are Japanese figurines from the World War II era. Then you look at it a little bit further and there's actually chrysanthemum flowers at the base of the figurine. One more step and you'll start to notice that there's different flowers on each of the figurines. So now let's take a step back and look at the Type 38 once again. So when you pack-a-punch it, like I said, it's called the defaced chrysanthemum, and weirdly enough, this gun actually has an electrical effect once you've pack-a-punched it. This effect comes from killing zombies, and every so often it'll trigger the effect. So I don't know if it's just a cool effect or not, but it is interesting that the gun that ties into all this lore also happens to have a unique AAT effect. The only other gun in the game I believe that does this is the machine pistol that's found in Spawn. So I don't know if we're supposed to use the electrical effect on something or kill zombies near something, but it is interesting that the defaced chrysanthemum has that effect. So something I personally want to try is killing zombies near these figurines with that effect and or near the flower shops in the map. The flower shop in the very middle is intriguing to me because it never had a player glitch associated with it, so there was never a reason to patch it. And something you might not know is that that building with the shingles and the flower shop just also happens to have a instant game-ending death barrier when using no-clip. Usually if you go out of bounds somewhere they don't want you to be, it just downs you or it kicks you back into the map, stuff like that. But to end the game just permanently is a very interesting effect that they only reserve for very secret areas or like boss fights, things like that. Something that they don't want you to see. So why is there just an absolute game-breaking death barrier on that flower shop? And also over the pub, weirdly enough, which that makes sense because they patched that glitch from earlier. But why is the flower shop death barriered? Who knows? But all I know is that the chrysanthemum is either an Easter egg with these figurines or it's just a really cool piece of lore and we can consider that a solved Easter egg. So now let's move on to our next side Easter egg. So this next thing has broken Reddit a few times and also confused a lot of people, myself included. But when you look at the window barriers around the map, a lot of them have these insignias carved at the bottom and the top of the window that look kind of like little crowns or something. And so I started to look into this and I found in real life, because they love to tie real life lore into this game, that in real life they used to carve these symbols into window barriers or above doorways, things like that, to protect them from witches and or evil spirits. So these are like a witch's insignia type thing on the windows. So to me, that was a really cool piece of lore that they added into the atmosphere of this map. But I've also noticed that these window barriers that they're carved into are in odd spots that just happen to be near some of these side Easter eggs. So then it got me thinking that this might be similar to the metal plates that Klaus left behind that indicate the hardcore Easter egg steps on the map. And so when I started thinking about it, we have the notebook for the casual Easter egg, the metal plates for the hardcore Easter egg. So why wouldn't the side Easter eggs be marked? So it's very possible to me that these window barrier markings are actually near side Easter eggs and mark where to look for stuff. And so I just thought that was worth mentioning while we were talking about the lore of history and how it ties into this game with the defaced chrysanthemum and how the witch's insignias might play into this map. So not really sure if it actually marks anything or not, but either way, hopefully this clears up some of the confusion I've seen all over the internet on what these symbols even are. And now that we're done with our history lesson, I wanted to clear up one more confusing thing for the community, which is the panel found in the town square. So this panel has haunted the community ever since release. I have spent an insane amount of time hunting this myself, so I wanted to get one thing straight so that we're all on the same page going forward. One, the panel is not the same asset as the panels that blow open during the hardcore Easter egg. If you look closely, the ones that blow open have a bent corner at the very top, and the one in the town square does not. So that tells us that it's a different asset. And thanks to other people using NoClip, we know that there's no item inside of that panel, or at least not yet. Maybe, I guess, something could spawn into it or lower in or out of that playable area, but at the moment the panel is different and it's also empty. So it's not exactly looking great for this Easter egg, but I can still hold on to some hope that this panel Easter egg does end up being something. The only mention of this panel from the developers is an interview with Jay Rizzo, Cameron, and Jason, who is a developer, and they actually talked about this panel specifically.
You know those objective panels that hide the Uberschnells for the Tesla guns?
Sure.
There's one in the square right above where you turn on the generator for the bunker. What's that all about? Like, was that like a cut Easter egg, or is there something more to that?
I have a question for you, Rizzo.
Shoot.
If we were to tell you an answer, and it revealed something that you might have had enjoyment finding yourself, would you want to know? Would you want the community to know that there's something that they could have found themselves that you just ruined right now by asking directly?
Wow, you really got to just make me the bad guy, huh? But yes, I'm terrible at finding Easter eggs.
I'm gonna have to pass on this one.
Darn.
Yeah.
So, audience, take that how you will.
So yeah, that was a super vague answer, and you know, like Rizzo said, take that as you will. I could see it going either way, but I hope that that clears up any kind of confusion on the panel Easter egg. And now let's take a look at an Easter egg I debuted in my last video, and it's known as the Fountain Easter egg. So the Fountain Easter egg is something that I, and I'm sure a lot of people have noticed as an odd asset. This fountain is a one of a kind, it's not featured anywhere else in the game, and it sticks out like a sore thumb. So when you look in the lion's mouth, you'll see a hose that comes out that would obviously fill up the fountain with water, or more likely blood in this case. So does that mean that we have to collect souls by killing zombies nearby, or do we have to activate something else in the map to trigger this fountain to fill up? I don't really know, but when I started looking into it more, I noticed that that orangish tint that's on the fountain actually matches the well in the nearby area with that same color. Then when you look at the well, you'll notice the faces on the well that also have spouts coming out, and they match similar to the fact that the lion head face and these humanoid faces both have these spouts coming out of them. So is the well the activation point and the fountain is what we fill up? I'm not entirely sure. I also want to add to this whole fountain thing that there are the 2 gas cans that will be there the entire map in the nearby areas to each of these assets. One more thing about the gas cans is they will create a crawler on any round. It does not matter if you're on round 1 or round 100. If you blow up the gas can next to a zombie, it will create crawlers. So that leads me to believe that maybe these gas cans are tied to the fountain itself, and the crawlers that we create are then used as sacrifices or something along those lines. So I need to do a lot more testing on this and really flush out what this could be. But that's everything I know about the fountain at this point. But now let's move into our lightning round for these side Easter eggs. The lightning round are things that I find odd and I don't really have much of a lead or theory for, so we're going to do these really fast. And first one is the whistling pod in the laboratories. So with all the whistling pods in the laboratory, there's one that stands out among all the other ones. So obviously the whistlings can spawn in these pods and then they break out, and then at a certain point all the pods are open. However, there's the one on the upper floor that is very different than all of these because it starts open and there's never a whistling in it. Also, it's very well lit and there's a spotlight right on it, but what makes it really strange is that there's blue cables that come out of it and link up with the transfer device used during the Tesla gun. It also goes right through the electrical trap, and it's just an odd pod that makes me go, huh. So I just wanted to point that out because it might be tied to something and it's just kind of worth knowing. So let's move into our next lightning round lead. Thanks to our sponsor Cheat, we have also uncovered another asset in this game that's known as a red Brenner head, or like a demonic version, like a bloodied version of a Brenner head. So we don't know anything about this because the game has not been ripped like the other Call of Duties, and people just haven't had a chance to rob us of the fun of hunting yet. So hopefully one day somebody comes through and is a saint and data mines this whole game and takes away my career. But for right now, we just know that there is a red Brenner head in the game files. Whether it's a thing or not, who knows? I asked one of my teammates to look into this further since he has this on PC, and he was able to confirm that this does in fact exist in the files, but as to what it is, what it does, where it goes, I have no idea. I just know that this is terrifying if this is real, because that means that there's a demonic Brenner that we'd have to fight, and that's exactly what fuels my nightmares. So hopefully this is actually not a thing and we can just move on to our next lead. So now we can finally talk about a different map, which is the Shadowed Throne, and there's the zombie head that can be found in the armor machine when you melee a zombie next to it. This was in my last video, and a lot of people are aware of this, because to upgrade the axe quest, you need to collect a Scorcher head, but for whatever reason, you can also collect a zombie head and unbalance the scales. So the leading theory is that the zombie head is there to let you know it's the wrong kind of head, and then you go and seek out a Scorcher to actually balance the scales. But it's always kind of in the back of our minds that this could be something else involving something. So the community's kind of split on this, and I just wanted to include this in this video since we're talking about every unsolved possibility. And that is going to wrap up the zombie head Easter egg on the Shadowed Throne. So now I'm going to put a bow on the World War II Easter egg leads as a whole. Now that you've seen all of the side Easter egg leads, all the super Easter egg leads, and all these odd items I've been pointing out, I want to draw our attention to the platforms on the second map of the Tortured Path. So we know that each platform represents a different different map throughout the game. However, the items they chose to represent these maps just happen to be items from side Easter eggs and a lot of these leads that we've been looking at. So could this have been their way of hinting at what had to be done on each map, or possibly hinting at the side Easter eggs on each map themselves? This would have been a really good way to do that, especially since the torture path is on a separate playlist, meaning that it wouldn't have been involved in a super Easter egg that might span over all the maps. So now let's take a look at each of these items on the platform, starting with the final Reich. At first, we notice our blue bear over here in the corner just hanging out against the wall. And we're also going to notice that the bunker door is weirdly upside down. I don't really think that's connected to what I'm saying, but it's just kind of funny to me. And if you've never noticed that, yeah, the door is upside down for some reason. So next we have the Japanese figurines over here on the rock. So again, another odd item I've been pointing out. And lastly, we have the green present box. Now, I haven't mentioned that in this video. That will be going in one of my follow-up videos to talk a little bit more about this. But since I'm talking about it here, I will go ahead and drop that this box that's featured in the toy shop window on the final Reich is kind of odd. It plays a Jack-in-the-Box type melody out of it every so often. And it's got the toy clown on it, which has marked Easter egg steps on the Shadowed Throne and the Frozen Dawn. And again, I'll be talking about this a little bit more in the future, but it's not really relevant to this video, so that's why I didn't go into it. On the Darkest Shore, you'll notice something familiar if you've been following my channel, but we have the box that was for the upgraded Jack-in-the-Box Easter egg that our community solved a couple years back at this point. So yeah, another side Easter egg on these platforms. And when we move to the Shadowed Throne platform, you'll notice that they have the Perkaholic Easter egg that was with the leopard and the hats. Still one of my favorite Easter eggs in this game. So that's going to wrap up the panels. I think it's pretty cool that it showcases a lot of the main and side Easter eggs on the maps. However, there also are a lot of other items that could definitely be an Easter egg on these platforms. So maybe those are clues to hunt the additional side Easter eggs on the final Reich and other maps. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we are finally done with World War II Zombies and can move on to our next title. I know that that was a ton of information and a lot of you guys don't even like this game, but there is a lot to convey here. And so, like I said, I'll be making a few follow-up videos to really do a much deeper look at everything I've talked about, as well as a few videos that are really cool lore Easter eggs, because upon hunting a lot of these, we uncovered a lot of secret lore that is really cool, but it doesn't necessarily relate to an Easter egg. So I have a few standalone videos that will be part of my World War II series. And so stay tuned for that. And like I said, you can join the Discord if you want to know all this information. So let's move on to our next title that actually started my channel, Black Ops 4. So Black Ops 4 is looking pretty light these days due to the fact that most stuff's already been solved, and also it got hardcore data mined about a year ago, so there's not much to go on here. But there are ciphers that we know about and have been data mined, but we just don't know where they exist in the game. So I wanted to debut this information because I've never seen anyone talk about this, and I've kind of just kept it in the back of my mind. But today we're purging everything I know. So I'm talking about the banners around the arena. If you'll notice that there's red and blue banners, but none of the flags are the same pattern. And it clearly screams cipher to me. And so I would love to have somebody that knows more about ciphers reach out to me, because I don't know exactly what this might be, if it is something. And at this point, I'm like 85% sure this is going to end up being something and match one of the ciphers that's been data mined. But I just would love to get some help on this, and just hopefully the community can come together and solve this if it actually is a cipher. So that's pretty much everything about the arena banners that I have, but I just wanted to get that out there so we can start working on this. And now, last but not least, the Blood of the Dead catwalk arms. It's believed that this is an Easter egg where you have to melee or shoot the arms in a specific order to get some sort of prize or reward, like a max ammo or a perk or something along those lines. So at this point, we just need to start brute forcing these combinations, and if we had the mental fortitude to complete the Vases combinations, then I know we are okay to do this one. There's roughly about 8 to 10 arms, and they spawn in at the end of each, or at the start of each round, so we can clearly brute force this over a period of time, and I think it's time that we just start chipping away at it. So if you're playing Blood of the Dead, try a couple combinations as you run past the catwalk, and maybe one of these days somebody will get lucky. And that is going to wrap up Black Ops 4 and complete all of the unsolved Easter eggs, because at this time there's nothing on Cold War, Vanguard, or Modern Warfare Zombies that we are aware of. So that means that you are completely up to date on everything that needs to be hunted in all of Call of Duty Zombies. And with that, that's going to finish out the video. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this content. I hope that it helps you get up to date on the Easter eggs and start hunting these. And now, more importantly than ever, it's time for us to come together, share our information, and finally get a solve on all of these remaining unsolved Easter eggs. There was a lot of work that went into this video, and I just want to say thank you to my teammates, Lupercal and Unveri, for helping me get this information together, getting footage and debunking things, and also hunting some of these leads. So huge thank you to you guys. And I also want to say thank you to my community, especially my Discord, who's helped me organize a lot of this and theorize and things like that. So massive thank you to all of you guys. And if you want to be part of these hunts, then you can join the Discord that's linked in the description. Before I head out, I just want to say it would mean a lot to me if you guys could like this video and subscribe and share it and do all that. You guys know the drill. It would mean a lot to me, so thank you. And with that, my name is Absoulem, and I hope to see you in my next video.